What is up? Daniel here with the Virtual Robotics Studio, and we are back for the bumper video. So we're going to build bumpers, we're going to get them attached to the robot, but before we get started, we're going to give another special thanks to Argosy for making this all possible, to First and Andymark for parts and support, and to Team 302, Lake Orion High School, for hosting our studio. Okay, the most important box for our bumpers is there's this cardboard box that came in the Andymark kit of part chassis box. And inside here we have some different kind of bumper mounts. So we have this style, which is going to be for the side of the robot, and then these bigger ones, which are going to be for the front and back. And you'll notice that you have, I think, 8 of each style. So we have 8 big ones and 8 of the smaller ones. That is 4 of each type for each set of your bumpers. So remember, you need a set of red bumpers and a set of blue bumpers. Unless you build fabric that reverses, so you can have them both built out of the same thing. There's also a bag of hardware in here, which is these number 8 3/4 inch long wood screws, and then there's some long bolts and wing nuts, which will attach these to the rest of the robot. In addition to that, of course, we are going to need the wood. So we've got this giant wood panel. This is our second 24 by 48 inch sheet. This is enough to build one full set of bumpers off, and I think get one of our electrical panels out of the end of it. Additionally, you're going to need some kind of bracket that's going to go on the outside to help hold it in place. So I know Andymark sells one along with the rest of their bumper kit stuff that you can get, which is probably pretty good for it. I just went to Home Depot and found these. You definitely want something that is, decently long, like 2 inches or so long on one side, because of the way the wood is going to overlap. Then also, and this is another optional thing, in order to make the corners a little bit stronger, there are these other plates that can go on top and bottom of our corner to screw in and help hold it together. Now, you have to be a little careful with that because drilling into the side of plywood can sometimes be tricky. But we're going to go ahead and try those as well. There are just maybe barely enough of the wood screws in here to be able to attach all of your brackets to your bumpers. You're almost assuredly going to need some more of those wood screws to be able to attach our corner plates and stuff like that. So these are number 8 3/4 inch long wood screws. And then this is very, very optional, but we got some 1032, and these are basically just nuts. And so we've been using nylock nuts up to this point, but there is going to be a point where in this build where we might want to keep some of these extremely long bolts attached to the frame of the robot. And screwing in a nylock nut all the way down to the end of this bolt is going to be painful. So I got some just regular 1032 nuts so we can use to hold a few of these bolts in the frame of the robot later. All right, that's it. Let's get started. Our first step is going to be to cut the wood down to size. So I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. Let's mark up our wood board and get cutting. All right, we've got all of our materials to mark and cut here. But before we do, the instructions say we need 2 28-inch pieces and 2 32-inch pieces per bumper set. Remember, you're making 2 bumper sets, one for red and one for blue. So if we measure the robot, though, this front panel going across the front is 26.5. And if we think about it, we're going to have another 3/4 of an inch sticking out for the wood that's coming in from this side. We want this panel to overlap that wood. And I think we need it to overlap wood on the other side. So 26.5 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 would be 28. That makes sense. So our front piece is going to be 28. It's going to overhang our frame by 3/4 on this side and on this side, and that's perfect. Okay, but if I measure the side, let's come around to the other side of the robot here. If we measure the side, I get 32 and what is that, 1/4 plus 1/16. So I think the side of our robot should be a little bit longer. I think we want to make it actually 32 1/4 instead of just 32. So I know the instructions say 32. Check your robot. Your robot might be a little bit of a different dimension than mine. But I don't think I want to leave the 1/4 inch gap there uncovered. So I'm going to do mine about 32 1/4. We want it to not be longer than this, though, because we don't want our sides to stick out at all, because the front and backs are going to stick out. So it has to be shorter than this measurement that we're doing right here. So this measurement, again, 32 1/4 plus, plus like 1/16. So we have to be shorter than that. Okay, let's move the robot out of the way. Let's get our board up here and start marking it. All right. This is a brand new piece of 2 foot by 4 foot plywood. I think yours, when we made the electrical board, I think we took a strip off one side, like a 6.5 inch strip off one side. And remember, you're going to be making 2 sets of bumpers. I'm only going to make 1 set of bumpers in the video because you can copy it. So that means on this board, I'm going to need 2 of our 28-inch long bumper pieces and 2 of our 32.25-ish inch long bumper pieces. And I'm going to make them all on the same board, but we do have that cut diagram that we showed earlier. We'll show it again. And this is like if you take all of the 32-inch pieces off one board, you're going to have a bigger, more usable piece of your, well, on the 28-inch board, right? So if you do all the 32s on one board and all the 28s on one board, the 28s will leave you with a little bit bigger piece of scrap at the end. So that's just extra material that if you have something else for it on this robot where you would want to use that, you'll have a more usable piece. Maybe future robots, you'll want that piece as well. So that piece will be big enough like to make another electrical board, for example. We talked about in the front of the robot how there is more space there. You could mount something else there if you really wanted to. All right. So again, I'm going to do 28, 28, 32, 32 on my board. You should do 32, 32, 32, 32. Then get your other board and do 28, 28, 28, and 28. All right, let's start marking this off. And this board is pretty flat, so I'm happy about that. OK, so if we make some marks, let's see. Well, let me mark it with a tape measure. That seems like a method that was working for us. So I guess we'll come in from the top here and out towards the side here. I'm looking for bumpers are 5 inches wide. So I'm going to mark 5 inches here. And then somewhere over here on the board, we're going to mark again for 5 inches. OK, that looks good. Then we can come in from the outside of the board. And I guess I'll do the long ones first. I'll do 32 inches first. So if I measure in until we get to 32, we can leave a mark there. And let's see if the square is really square or not. Or if the piece is square. I know my square is pretty square. So if I get right onto that, oh, 32 is the wrong measurement. 32.25, we said. Let's go back and fix that. All right, this is 32. And remember, measure for your robot 32.25, but we definitely don't want to be longer than that. If we're a little shorter than 32.25, that's OK. So not this one, but this one. All right, so just get this lined up. And I probably didn't have to draw that line all the way through, but let me see if that line is straight. If I measure down here, are we also 32.25? Yep. This piece was pretty straight. Remember, you can also measure in 2 places and mark, and then just connect those two points, especially if you don't have the big square to lay your stuff out. All right, let's also trace the other place we're going to cut here. And the 5 inches is a little bit less critical. If you're a little bit longer than 5 inches or a little shorter, it's going to be OK. So we've got our 5 inches marked up. You can kind of double check, make sure my line's in a good spot. Yep. And OK, a little short. All right, so we definitely want to leave that line. All right, that is our first cut that we're going to try to make. I think, because none of our pieces are ever going to be bigger than 30, well, yeah. We'll see, somewhere around the middle of the board we have to make this first cut to. OK, I'll probably just cut the whole thing off. So I have a 32-inch section, or 32.25-inch section. Then we can make 2 cuts to get our 2 long pieces. Then we can cut it down to 28 and do the next 2 cuts. But if you're doing all your 32s, that 1 cut for 32 inches means you'll be good to go for all 4 of your bumper pieces. OK, so that line is where we want the cut to be. But because I want to set up the guide so I can make a nice straight cut, we need to make another set of marks, 1.5 inches. Let's see, I'm going to have the piece down on this side. So I'm going to want it 1.5 inches into the piece. but 1.5 inches will get me to the other side of the saw blade. So it's like 1.5 inches less, 1.5 inches and another eighth less. So 1 5/8 inches less or something like that for my saw blade width. So we're going to do another mark out here on the end at, so we were 32 1/4. If we take off 1 inch, that's 31 1/4. If we take off another 1/2 inch, that's 30 3/4. And then I'm going to take off 1 more eighth from that. So I'm going to be marking this right at 30 5/8. Okay, and then I'll do another one down here, also marked at 30 5/8. Okay, so now I can slide this off the edge of the table. So my cut line is not going to be part of the table. And then we can take our egregiously long piece of aluminum here, and we can clamp that on our 2 marks. And then we'll double check to make sure everything is looking good before we make our first cut. Got to be on this side so the saw has room. And we'll just line that right up on the point of my little mark here. Same thing on this side. I don't think it's going to hit that, but it should go on this side. Then for sure it won't hit it. All right, so we're clamped down. Let's see if we're lined up correctly. I'm going to give it a quick. And that is, wow, way too close. So we're on the wrong side of the line there. So we need to move over by another 1/8 of an inch. Okay, we need to move this way by 1 more 1/8 of an inch. So the saw blade, I guess, is thicker than I expected. Also, we're cutting on the other side this time. So I think on the other times we've been on the scrap side, which is why we're adding 1.5 inches. All right, so let's go. We can mark from our mark another 1/8 of an inch. Somewhere around there. Same thing on this side. Let's see, I'll start at the 1, and then I'll go to the 1/8 point. So right there. Okay, let's try again. Slide this over right onto that new mark. And remember, this piece can be, we can't be longer than 32 1/4. But we can be a little shorter, and that's okay. So we'll make sure that that is the case here. All right, let's see where we end up. Okay, that is going to leave the whole line. So we got to go somewhere in between those two, just a little bit back. So on this cut, the line is at 32 1/4, so I want to just leave the line. Or just take the line off, because like I said, a little shorter is better than a little long. All right, let's try it. We gotta get it one of these times. Okay, that is just on the line. Perfect. Let's go. All right, that one's scrap. See how we're doing here. That is exactly 32 1/4. Remember, if yours is a little longer than 32 1/4, you might have to come in and make a second cut or do some filing on it. But now we're ready to make our second cut. I guess we got to go back on this side, the long side of the table for this one. Careful of splinters. So this is where we want to cut. And this time we have to again add that extra 1/2 of an inch here. So we're looking not at 5 for where we want to set up our guide. We're looking at 5, 6 1/2. And I think we're 6 1/2 plus like a 16th or plus a little bit, right, from before. So we're going to be like there. And 6 1/2 plus a 16th. We're going to be like there. All right, we can line this up so our cut is off the table. And let's get this clamped down. Let's see. On this side, we can get close. So just going to put the edge right on that line. Put the edge on this side right on the line as well. Looks pretty good. All right, let's see where we end up on this one. Okay, this time, I don't understand my saw, but this time it looks like 1 1/2 inches would have been perfect. So I will just adjust this to the other side of my pencil mark. All right, and let's do it. Okay, first bumper section, 32 1/4 by, and just under 5 inches. Maybe I was good before I made that last adjustment. All right, that's close enough. Set that one off to the side. Let's mark our next cut here. And so again, we're looking for another 5 inches. And so I will definitely get ourselves a mark at 5. And to mark at 5. Okay. And I do like having that line just so I can watch when I'm cutting and make sure everything is going according to plan. But to set up the fence, we're going to go 1 1/2 inches past that, so we're back to 6 1/2 inches here. And 6 1/2 inches on this side. Okay, let's line it up. On the line, on the line. Let's clamp this one down. Okay, seems good. Let's see how we did. Yeah, that's going to be right on the line. Let's go for it. All right, second bumper piece compared to the first, it is very, very close. Close enough. Okay, then, again, for you, at this point, since you need 4 of these, you're going to repeat the same process and do 2 more cuts at 5" and another 5". Because I'm going to just make 1 set of bumpers, like I said, I'm going to make them all out of the 1 piece of wood, which means I need this now to be 28 inches long instead of the 32 that it is right now. And I think this is the clean edge, so I'm going to cut on the end I cut on before. And let's measure out to 28. And 28. So the line, whoops, that was a little. Perfect. And then, of course, we need, can't remember what the adjustment was, but it's 28 minus 1.5 inches. And then it was like minus a bit more for the width of the saw blade, because the thing is going to be here, which means the saw blade is going to be on this side. So we got to add the, yeah, okay. So we're going to do minus 1/8 maybe. I feel like that's where I started last time, and it was wrong. But all right, so 28 minus 1.5 inches is 26.5 plus 1/8. So 26 5/8. Get these clamps on. All right, and let's see if we're close to that line. Looks like we're going to be off a little bit, a little too far off. But. Oh, yeah, okay. So I'm just going to adjust this forward a little bit. Looks like I'm off by almost that whole 1/8 of an inch. So. But I swear last time I marked it and it wasn't right, so I don't know. We're just going to keep going until we get it. Okay, and since I sort of eyeballed that adjustment, I can measure just to make sure we're at the same place here. So this is 5.5 plus a 32nd, and this is 5.5 plus that's a 16th, so this side has to get just a little closer to stay level with the other side. Try again. It's pretty good. Really, I should measure from this side, though, because this is the clean edge and this is the side we care about. So I'll double check to this side. So that's 25 and 5/8 plus a 16th, 25 and 5/8 plus a 16th. All right, that looks pretty straight. Let's see if we're on the line. Oh wait, I moved the wrong way. We're definitely farther away from the line. Let's try that again, going the other way. All right, so we need it to be the same amount, but the other direction. Got it. All right, so this is 25.5. We'll set this one also to 25.5. Looks good. Clamp it down. All right, still a touch long. All right, but this time it's going to be good. Okay, so last time we were at 25.5, so I'm just going to take one more 1/16 of an inch off of that. Actually, this was probably fine. I probably should have just cut it. It was probably close enough, but. And this piece, if you remember, can be a little long because this is the piece that sticks out in front of the other pieces. I think that's good. Yeah, okay. I think we're good. All right. Gonna double check. Yep, pretty much exactly 28. Just a hair long, which we said is gonna be okay. All right, so now we gotta do a 5-inch strip down here. And I guess we gotta do that twice. We gotta make 2 5-inch strips. Remember, you can only mark one at a time because when the saw goes through, the saw blade removes some material, so we can't pre-mark both of them. So there's our 5-inch. Got a line to follow, and then another 1.5 inches. And another 1.5 inches. Okay. Line this up. Make sure the edge I'm cutting is off the table. And that is lined up pretty good. That looks close. Let's see. We still off the table over here? Yeah, we're good. All right, let's test it. Yeah, that's right on. Let's go. Next piece. I've got, okay, just under 5. We know that's going to be okay, and pretty much exactly 28. Okay, one more 5-inch piece of this, and then we have our 4 pieces of our bumper. And again, you need 8 pieces for your bumper. All right, this time, let's see. We'll just do a quick mark right at the start at 5 inches, because that's really where we're checking to see if we're good. So if I do a quick line right at 5 at the start, and then we add 1.5 inches, so 6.5. And again, we were a touch short, so I'm going to add maybe 1/16 of an inch. So 5, 6.5 plus 1/16. All right, let's get this clamped up. That looks pretty good. Make sure on this side I'm not going to cut the table. Oh yeah, we got plenty of room. All right. Let's see where we end up. Yeah, that's good, because we're keeping the outside. We're keeping the part that's falling. Got it. We're good. Let's go. All right, we can compare it to the other one. Of course, they're the same length because we made that cut first. And then the second one we cut is just a hair taller. But the first one was just a hair short. So these are all going to be good. All right, let's go ahead and grab the sander. Remember, if you just have sandpaper, they make like little blocks where the sandpaper is attached to it too, or you can attach to it. That makes it really easy to do it by hand. But I'm just going to sand all these really quickly, and then we can clean this mess up. All right, we've got 4 of our bumper sections cut and sanded to length. You should have 8, 2 sets of bumpers again. I'm gonna get this cleaned up. We're gonna come back and start assembling. All right, I'm gonna take 2 of the bumper pieces, one of the long ones, 32 1/4, one of the short ones, 28. and they're basically going to come together into a corner. Now, if you remember, the 28 is going to stick out past the ends of the robot. So the 30, the longer piece, the 32¼ is going to come into the side of the shorter one. Okay, so make sure you have it this way, not this way. So the shorter one is on the outside. And then I got these corner brackets, and it looks like only one is going to fit. The second one sticks up a little too high. If you are very ambitious, cutting this down could be good, so you can just have the entire outside corner covered. But for today, we're just going to go ahead and attach the one of these on here. All right, and we should probably clamp these a little bit in place to help us out. And it doesn't really matter if this is perfectly centered, but we're going to do our best to put it in, about the middle. And then I'll go ahead and throw one clamp on this side, and then we can do another clamp on the other side. And I will probably have to remove that clamp when it comes time to drill those holes. All right, so we're kind of together. Also on this bracket, you'll notice that there is a shorter leg and a longer leg. So the short side should go on this piece, right? Because it's just flat on the edge of the piece, no problems. The longer side needs to go on where the joint is, the side where you can see the seam, because it has to reach past the seam before we get to those holes. So the short side is on just the piece, on the 28-inch piece, and then the longer side goes across the end of the 28-inch piece and then into our 32¼ or so piece. Okay, and we can't just take the wood screws and drill them in. We have to drill a pilot hole. So when you're drilling into wood like this, if you just take the screw and start drilling it in, there's a chance the wood's going to split. And especially when we come and do the other brackets on the top and bottom, where the layers of the plywood are, we have to drill probably an even bigger pilot hole to make that work. So usually what I do is just kind of eyeball the piece and look for a drill bit that's just smaller than sort of the diameter of the inside part of the screw. So not the threads, but I look for something that's about the same as the inner part. And I think 7/64 looks good. You can also search on the internet. You'll get a bunch of different recommendations depending on what wood you're drilling into. Probably anywhere from 3/32 to 9/64. So I'm going to start with this. This is a 7/64 drill bit. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in my drill here. Okay, and then we'll come around and drill one of the holes. Doesn't matter which hole you do first. Try to be in the center. I know the drill bit is smaller than the hole, and if you're off center a little bit, it's going to be okay, but try to be in the center, and it's going to work a little bit better. And you can go basically all the way through. So this is a 3/4-inch drill screw. It's going to not quite go all the way through because we have the thickness of the plate here. Now, I am not going to use my driver to drive this screw in. It's going to just go too hard, and it's probably going to strip out the hole. So you can use your drill, and if you're going to use your drill, unfortunately, I only have the one drill. So I'd have to take the drill bit out, put my whatever shape bit you need. I have Phillips screws, so I'm going to put my Phillips bit in. And then make sure you go to screw mode, and make sure you set that clutch way down. We do not want to, basically if you drill this in and you have too much force spinning it, it's just going to rip the threads out of the wood. And then it's going to spin in the hole. It's not going to be holding anymore. So I'm going to start very low. I'm on like 3 on my clutch. And we'll go ahead and drill that in. And even 3 might have been too aggressive. Actually, even 1 might be too aggressive. So you have to be very careful when you're screwing these in. And actually, that also might mean that the size pilot hole that I was drilling, maybe it was too big for the side of the wood here. So I'm going to drop down from 7/64 to 3/32, and we'll give that a try for our second hole. Okay, but this is going to still be fine. Let's drill another one that we can get to. Still trying to be in the middle. And also, these screws are fairly short. So you can also drive them in by hand, which I've got a screwdriver here. And And this is good too because you definitely will feel when it is tight and not overdo it. That one got nice and tight. We'll stop there. You might notice that the plate I got does not have countersink area for the countersink screws to go in. That's not ideal, but it's going to be okay because this is going to all be covered with foam anyway. All right, so I can take this clamp off, and let's go ahead and get the other 2 holes. We're going to stick with that 3/32. That seemed to work a little bit better. And since I have the 2 screws in, it shouldn't be able to move much. I'm going to drill the last 2 holes here. And again, I think for me, I personally prefer screwing these in by hand just to make sure I don't over tighten them. And they're short. They screw in quickly. It's not, it's not terrible. Also, I do have the ratcheting screwdriver, which helps a little bit. All right, that's good. And we're good. All right, turn it a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing now on the other side. All right, so we'll just pick one of these. Try to center it, and here we go. The first couple, I'm going to put screws in one at a time, just in case things are going to try to shift on me. And you should be checking to make sure your corner is still lined up, that things haven't moved too much in that regard. That's good. Let's do this one. That looks not in the center at all. That looks like it's in the center. All right. Good. Clamp can come off. We'll drill the last 2. All right. So those are all in now, and you can feel this is still pretty flimsy, still can bend in and out. And were we just building a corner to be a strong corner, I would put one of these on the inside too, and then all of a sudden it would get real strong. We can't do that though, because on the inside, it has to sit pretty flat against the side of the robot. So those screws where they're bumping out, that's going to be a problem for us. Actually, even the thickness of this sticking out could be a problem for us. So the other way that we can try to make this stronger is by adding some of these corner brackets to the top and bottom of our piece. Now, with these, we definitely need to be much more careful with the hole. I think if we just use the same 3/32 drill bit, we are going to split the wood when we go in. I think probably maybe 1/8 is going to work for you, but I'm going to start with, well, you know what? I'll start with a 1/8 drill bit, and you can wait and see if this splits the wood before you decide whether or not to use the 1/8 drill bit. All right, so I'm just going to keep this kind of lined up by hand. I really just don't want it should not stick on the inside. It shouldn't stick out to the inside of the wood. So if it sticks out on the outside, that's okay. I'm going to try to line it up with the outside edge though. And then right in the center of this hole, I am going to drill a nice 1/8 hole. And let's see what happens when we go to screw this in. That went well. Okay, so I'm going to go with the 1/8 drill bit. That seemed to work for me. If your first screw goes in and the layers of the wood start splitting apart when you drive that screw in, just go up to the next size up drill bit and continue with that one, because we don't want it to split like that. All right, I'm going to realign it to the outside edge, and I'll try drilling over here for this hole. And especially with this one, I think also if you use the hand drill or the screwdriver, it is going to be easier to be careful to not split the wood as well. Okay, and it doesn't get quite as tight. Ideally, yeah, a smaller size would be good, but I'm more worried about splitting the wood. You can also feel already, it's starting to feel stronger when I try to bend the corner in and out. So it is doing its job here. All right, let's keep going. We can do 2 at once this time. Because we have the 2 screws in, our bracket should not be able to move on us. All right, I'm going to flip the whole thing over. And yeah, that feels way sturdier already. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. So line it up with the outside edge, make sure it's not sticking on the inside at all. And then accidentally move it while reaching for the drill, so line it back up again. They're nice, all right. It's like before, still make sure, reline up, it can rotate here. And 2 more. All right, pretty good. Now that corner is pretty stiff. I mean, I could still make it bend because I have huge lever arms, but I feel comfortable now holding it by one piece and moving it around, which I would not have done before adding the extra brackets. Okay, so this side is done. I'm going to do one more set, and then we'll come back with 2 finished L pieces. You're going to need to have 4 total L pieces because, yeah, once again, you're making red and blue bumpers. I'm just making, I don't know, maybe blue bumpers. All right, so we'll be back with a second finished L. All right, I have 2 corner L pieces made. We do want to see if they fit the robot now. So it's going to go something like that and something like that. So if that's held in against the robot, that looks pretty good. If you have a little bit of bend in your piece, like if your piece is not fitting nice and square in the corner and it's bowed out a little bit like this, that's generally going to be okay. Once we attach the brackets, you'll be able to kind of force it in. You can tell the corner still has a decent amount of flex, so that's okay. All right. That seems good. Next step then is to, let me move these out of the way. Okay, so now we need to cut our pool noodles down and get them attached onto the frame here. We're going to go slightly out of order. I think we tried it putting the brackets on first, the mounting brackets on first, and then wrapping it. I think it's going to be a little bit better if we try again. This time we're going to wrap the fabric first and then attach the brackets directly on top of the fabric. I think it'll fit better into the robot that way. So let's cut our pool noodles down to size. We need 2 of them at 33.5 and 2 of them at 34.5 inches. So I'll take the 2 orange ones and let's measure 34.5 here. And this doesn't have to be super accurate, and we will probably cut these again before all is said and done. So we'll just get 2 34.5-inch marks on here. All right. And you can cut this with any of a number of things. You could cut this on the bandsaw. You could cut this with a handsaw. A serrated knife, kitchen knife, will work just fine. I've got a hacksaw blade that I'm not even going to bother putting into the hacksaw because it cuts so easily, so that's what I'm going to use. I'll just get my line here, and I think the long razor blades also work. They're like the utility knives where it extends out really far, and those will work well for this as well. But this, I mean, it's pretty easy. All right, and then, so those are our 2 34.5s. Now we need to measure out 2 33.5s. All right, 33.5. And 33.5. And then let's go ahead and trim these down. All right, then, oh, we are going to need this again, probably. OK, so then on our frame here, I think the idea is we're going to have one set. I think the shorter set is actually going to go on the longer side, which is a little weird. And that's because the longer set needs to stick out by enough to cover the, to get out to the edge of the pool noodles that would be on this side and the pool noodles that would be on that side. So let's start with the longer pool noodles, the 34.5s. And we're going to try to put those on the front of our wood piece here. And we want them to basically be sticking out about the same amount on either side. You can eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can check that on this side, it really should actually line up. So actually, let's do that. What I'm going to do is line it up with another pool noodle here, and I'm going to have this one sticking out just a teeny bit past, maybe 1/4 of an inch past. And that seems like a good spot for that to go. Then on this side, we'll probably have to trim it down because it's going to be sticking out by too much. But we do have to get a piece of wood in there to measure that as well. So we'll start somewhere around there. And we're just going to tape these on to help hold them in place so they don't move. And I don't know. Hopefully this was long enough. So I'm going to start kind of all the way over here in the corner and grab them. And then we'll come okay, wait, I don't like that way. Let's do it this way. I think if I start with this on the table, it's going to work better. I think if you have multiple people working on this, you're going to be able to do this a lot more efficiently than I am with just one set of hands. So I'm going to put that right over towards the edge here. And now we can take these and line them up again. So make sure they're even, just a little bit past. That seems good right there. Then There we go. Yeah, that was much easier. Okay, and what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to make it so that I only have one layer of this duct tape on the back. I really don't want it to go around a bunch of times, because any thickness we add on the back of the wood is going to be stuff that gets in between the wood and the frame of the robot. So I'm going to stop this kind of right on the edge up here on the top. And that seems pretty good. All right, then for the other side, we're going to take, well, I guess we'll keep taping. We keep taping this side first. So let's get another set of tape here. And again, try to put this somewhere in the middle. I think 3 sets of tape is probably going to be good. So we'll come middle-ish around like that. I'll go ahead and tear it right at the top here. And when you're putting this tape on as well, you don't want to squish the pool noodles down, because if you put the tape on so tight that the pool noodle is squished, then it's not going to have anything left to absorb the impacts with, right, if it's already all the way squished. So try to hold it securely in place, but don't crush it down. Also, we are using pool noodles here with a hole in the middle. If you can get pool noodles without a hole, that is going to be better. They're going to do a better job of absorbing the impacts from other robots. So we'll get this one basically out towards the end here. And again, we'll tear it off right at the top. OK, so this side is on. There are also some other materials you can add. I think first said there's like foam floor tiles, and if you put foam floor tiles on the back here before you put the pool noodles on, that'll add another layer of protection. This year's game, though, right? It's not. You're usually just on your half of the field, and there's only one defender. So compared to games where you're driving across the length of the field, crossing paths with other robots, there should be less big hits this year than in other years. So I think you're probably OK with just the pool noodles, especially if you can get solid ones. But if you do want to upgrade it, you can go ahead and get that foam tile stuff and put it on. And that will change the length, potentially, of your pool noodles. Now, I think these pool noodles are long enough when you cut them, so you should be fine. But if you imagine that there was another piece back here, right, this is going to be sticking out a little bit farther. This is going to be out here somewhere. So that's going to just adjust how you align those. But do the same thing with the alignment that we did before. All right. And these pool noodles, I'm going to take them all the way until they're touching the first two. So in our corner here, we're going to be touching. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and attach them. But before I put them in place, I'm going to get my first set of tape ready to go. Seems like that should be a good spot. All right, so we'll go all the way in on the bottom here until it's touching. And then the top one also till it's touching. And then we'll go ahead and get them taped in place. And probably 3 is enough on this one too, but if you really wanted to do 4 places of tape, because this is a slightly longer side, that would be fine. Somewhere in the middle here. But I'm really trying to make this inside edge be nice and flat. I don't want any extra wrinkles or stuff like that. If it's messed up on the outside, that's not as big a deal, because that's just going to get covered with fabric and nothing else touches there. All right, and let's do one more. Go towards the, let's get out towards the edge here. All right, now we can do a little bit of trimming on these. So the other orange side here, if I grab a scrap piece of that 3/4 inch material that we've been using, I just got, this is leftover, right? This is gonna go here like the other bumper. I guess you could use your other bumpers too, but I'm already now set up, so we're gonna be good. And if I bring this one in, that's roughly where we would want our orange ones cut down to. And in this case, they're sticking out by about the same 1/4 inch that I have on the other side, so I don't think I even need to trim them at all. I think they're perfect. So we'll just go ahead and leave those alone, which means we are now ready to start wrapping in the fabric. And you can use custom fabric, but if you want to use just what came in the kit of parts, that's what I'm going to use here. So this is just this, I don't know, Cordura material, I believe, but it's a heavy-duty fabric. And on this, you'll notice that there are two different sides. There's a smooth side, and then the other side is a little bit rougher. It has some texture to it. I'm going to put the smooth side facing in, but you could kind of do it either way you want. Some teams like to put the smooth side on the outside because they like the shiny look. Also, it's slipperier, so if robots are trying to play defense on you, you might be able to slide past them a little bit better. I think the rough side is going to do a better job of having our painted on numbers not wear off as easily because you get some of that texture to reach into and grip onto. It's not a huge difference either way. So whichever way you end up doing it, it's basically going to be, it's going to be fine. And in order to attach this, we're going to use a staple gun. So let me go grab my staple gun, get rid of some of this garbage, and we'll be ready to put the fabric on. Okay, so I've got my staple gun. This is an electric one. It's going to make my life a little easier, especially with just 2 hands and not extra people to help hold stuff in place. But if you have just the manual ones, that's going to work fine too. What I find is because we're going to be stapling down and there's a pool noodle underneath that can absorb the shocks, they're not going to sink all the way in. So I have a hammer to help knock them the rest of the way in. I'm using 3/8 long staples. You could probably use 5/16 and that would be fine. You don't want to go much longer than that, though. It's just not necessary. OK, then we've got the fabric. And what we want to do is make sure the fabric fits all the way around what we're wrapping. And then we need enough of this to make 2 of these L's. Actually, yeah, and then you need to make 2 more in red. So you need 2 blue ones, 2 blue L's, and 2 red L's. And I think if you have the fabric that was in the kit of parts, you can just measure it out, fold it in half, and cut it in half. And that would be fine. Or if you want, you can sort of set yourself up and we can cut it when we get to the other end here. It kind of more exactly where we need it, maybe a little bit less waste that way. So I'm going to get myself started here. And what I want to do is have this sort of centered on the fabric so it's even on both sides. And we really want to do our best to have the bumper be parallel to how the fabric is moving. And we're going to need more extra on this side so that it can fold up and attach this way. And then we're going to have some sort of corner joint here that we have to figure out as we're kind of folding this in. So something like that looks like that goes far enough, over the back edge here. And that's what we want to see. OK. And then if I bring this up the other side, this is also essentially going to have to come down somewhere around there. So I'm going to leave myself a little bit extra and then make this cut. But you can also just unroll yours all the way like I said. And if you make sure that, like, if I cut it here, based on how much extra I have on this, that's going to be less than half, so I know I'm going to be good. But you should check to make sure that you have at least half left over for the other side when all is said and done. All right, so let's find a good spot here to cut this. All right, and that seems, so the wood starts here. So I'm going to leave myself probably plenty extra, and then we can cut it again later, since I know there's so much extra before I get to half on this. So we'll just cut it off right there, and then get rid of our extra material. Okay, and now to do this, what I think we want to do is let's do one staple here, or a couple staples here, to initially hold this side in place. So I'm going to try to just make it nice and even, drop a couple staples in. And you can see they didn't quite go perfectly flat, so that's what the hammer's for. All right, then I want to make sure that we stay more or less straight as we do these steps. And I can't decide. Sometimes I like having a temporary staple on this side just to make sure I don't drift off on a curve too much. So let's do that. That staple I'm almost assuredly taking out when we get there. All right, now we have to figure out how we want to fold this. Essentially, we want this to fold up onto here. We want to leave a nice clean surface on the outside. But if you see this corner, like there's all this extra material. If I'm folding this up like this to cover this material in the corner, like that is all thickness that's going to block the ability to put this bumper on and get it in place. So we need to trim a lot of that excess away. Okay, so if a lot of it is bundled up on the top, that's okay. That doesn't bother me. So having like sort of folding this in and bringing it up like that seems fine. It's this extra bits that are coming down on the backside that we want to avoid. So what I think I might try to do is get a nice even fold right on the edge. So I sort of tuck this in and bring the bottom up. This is sort of like wrapping packages. Bring that up so it's nice and flat there. And then ultimately, we're going to bring this down and try to staple it in place. But I want to remove as much of this extra material as I can first. So with it sort of in this shape, if I get my scissors and I'll try to, like I want to make sure, basically, if I cut down this line, I think that's going to be good for us. Making sure to kind of keep the bumpers nice and tight in there as well while we're doing this. So once again, if we get this lined up, if I cut down this line, that's going to get me down sort of to one layer here, like that. Okay. And then everything else from that seam I want to cut out as well if I can. So let's see, keep it kind of up where it's going to go, and or from where that cut ended. If I cut straight across, I think that's going to be close. And then this, I'll just cut whatever I can. So now that's folding in on the side like that. I'm going to bring the place where it was cut right over to the edge and then bring it over. So now we'll have, basically as we do this, we're going to have 2 layers of fabric on the edge, and that's about it. And because this one's tucked under, I can actually take this fabric back on a diagonal away from that edge. So it's going to be even less overlap there. And that looks like a pretty clean corner. So I'm going to get some staples right on the edge. And then we'll do another one. I'll do one sideways coming up here. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And what I don't also want is the 2 sides to overlap like this, because this one's now on top of this one. So ultimately, we're going to cut this down so that the 2 edges of fabric come close but don't overlap. So somewhere about halfway through this piece is where I'm going to put the staple before halfway here. So that looks good. And I'll do one more there. And then let's go ahead and make sure these are in all the way. Cool. All right, and then this can sort of stay folded back. And we're going to try to replicate that same process now on this side. So I'm going to bring this one up till it's folding over right on that edge there. And then I'm going to cut down to the edge. And then this is all the stuff we want to get rid of right here. See, there might be a little more there to take out. And then bring the cut corner right up to the corner of our piece. Pull this over. Let's get a quick staple right on the edge. And then again, we can sort of do a little diagonal cut over to the corner here. Okay, and then one more staple as we go diagonally. Make sure this is not underneath here. Oh, okay, that staple did not hold the piece of fabric I wanted it to hold, but that's okay. We'll do another one. All right, staple here. And then a staple somewhere around there. All right. So now this is sort of set up. Looks good. I'm going to make sure we're staying still relatively straight here. And that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to work on the bottom, on this section, whatever the section towards. Well, I'll do this section first, this side here first. And basically, our pattern here is going to be to pull this way. So we're pulling tight from the staples that we have on the end. So I want to pull this way to keep that stuff tight. And I want to pull this way to keep it tight around the front. And the tighter you can kind of keep this as you go, the cleaner it's going to look, this edge is going to look when all is said and done. All right, so let's do that. I think to help us out with that, if I start on the blind side here and just sort of go all the way towards the corner, and I'm going to kind of push this in, pull tight, and I'm going to just add one staple over here, temporary staple, to keep that stuff nice and tight from shifting. Now, we're going to work our way down this edge, just pulling in as we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull it tight, and I want to get the first row of staples kind of like near the edge, not right on the edge of the wood piece, but near the edge of the wood piece. And we're just going to pull and staple every couple inches. You can add more if you want. And as we get close to the corner, I'm going to stop a little bit away so that I have room to work. I'm going to stop there. This is about, I would estimate this to be, because the tape measure is obviously too far for me to get it, this is 6 inches from the corner. All right, let's knock all of those in. And you really want these sitting flat too, because if they're sticking out, when you go to put this on the side of the robot, it could hit, it could be in the way and stop it from going in. So that's one of the reasons why I'm very pro hammer right now. Okay. Then we sort of know where we can take all of this excess off. So I'm going to come down kind of to my staple line here, and I'm going to cut straight along just this one piece all the way along. And I'll trim that off for now. We'll probably do a little more trimming of that one later. Okay, then this one, I don't want them to overlap, but it is kind of nice if they're close, so I'll go close to where the other one is. Actually, let's staple this one down now that we've come this far. So now the extra edge, we want to not let that be loose, so we're going to do another row of staples holding in that one. And these staples are just to keep the edge down, so you could get by with less staples on this part than on the edge where we started. And I got a little bit of extra material there. If you have a lot of extra and it feels like it's going to fold over and make more than one continuous sheet, then you might need to undo it and try again. So you do want to make sure you're still pulling tight on this as you go. And I probably should have pulled a little bit tighter. OK, so now we know basically where everything is. So now on this one, we're going to do the same bottom row of staples going all the way across. So I'll go right along the edge here. And if you need to, if it ended up getting shifted or whatever and you had to take that staple out so you could keep pulling tight, if there's a big bundle here, you can do that. You can pull that staple out. The best way is to do a flathead screwdriver, get it started, and then get a pair of pliers to pull it the rest of the way out. But mine is sitting pretty flat, so let's go ahead and knock these the rest of the way in. OK, now we can cut this one as well while we're at it. And I'm just going to try to go right next to the other seam. OK, we'll just trim that off as well, so it's out of the way. That looks pretty good. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So now we're going to go across the top edge. Again, like I said, do try to keep pulling it tight as you go, so it sits nice and flat. All right, now we have to deal with our corner here. And let's see how we can get this situated. That's pretty good. The corner has sort of a similar problem, which is if I try to just bundle the corner up like this and bring a seam down, like I can make it look pretty neat probably, but I've got all of this extra material. And so what we really want to do is remove almost all of the extra material from that point. So I think, like, ideally when this comes down, right? When this side comes down, we want to sort of only have a section, a flap that goes down on that side and nothing that goes past. So if we made a cut somewhere around here, that would work. And then on this side, same thing. We want to sort of have a cut here, so it's just a straight flat bit that comes down. Then we're going to have the extra in the middle that we're going to have to do something with. OK. So let's think about how that's going to end up being. So if I cut here, and we cut here, then we'll have all of this extra here, which I think we can tuck under. We can tuck it under once. I think so. OK, so here's what I'm going to do. On this side, right, I'm going to have this pulled. I'm going to pull it nice and tight in. And if you find the corner, right, like where this would end up hitting the corner, I'm going to go from that corner, which is right about there, and just do a little cut this way. Sort of like a 45-degree cut. Okay, now see how nicely that side is going to drop down. Now we have this side. And I think if we do the same cut here, then we can remove a lot of the extra, and then in between we will have kind of whatever little bit extra is left will fold down. So now I'm going to bring this side over so it's sitting nice and flat, sort of even on the seam there. I'm going to go to the corner, and again about that, I don't know, 45, 60, I don't know, some angle away, and I'm going to cut in on that. About to the corner, and now you can see that side is going to go in nicely. And so we really just have to deal with this excess that's here. And I think if I cut basically from where I cut the other one across, if I go straight across here from one cut to the other, if I make that cut, then when this side goes down and this side goes down, we would have something bundled up like right? And if all of this was underneath that instead of above, right? So we'll end up popping it under like this, then when we pull it down, it's going to be perfect. So yes, I agree. That cut is the cut we want to make. So after we do our 245s, we can cut straight across on this. Okay, and then if you fold it down, then when you bring this end up and over, you can sort of fold it down to that crack. Then when you bring this end up and over, there we go, that corner, we don't have extra material, and we have one seam kind of holding everything together in that corner, which is exactly what we want. So now we're going to flip it over. We got to do the same thing on this side. So again, it was if I get this sort of flat going out this way, and this one isn't sitting nice and as flat as the last one did, but that's okay. If I pull it in, as long as I start on the corner here and go out at my little angle, we can cut that. It might have been too much of an angle, but that's okay. So that's going to go down. Then on this side, let's pull it tight, find the corner. Something like that. All right, and then I want to cut between the two, which I don't know if you have to draw this line, but I will go ahead and do my best to show it. Okay, and then let's cut along that line. Okay, and so we're going to pull this end down and tight, and then this end is going to come up and over, and that looks good. All right, so now we can finish this side first. So we'll tip ourselves back up here. And this side, all we're going to do is pull it in tight and staple it down. So I might as well cut this now the rest of the way off, and this one the rest of the way off. And then let's finish stapling this edge all the way. So we can pull tight on this. And I want to get one as close to that corner as I can. That didn't go in great, but we'll see if we can fix Yeah, okay. Then we'll go this way on it. And finish the top row as well. This one didn't go at all. All right. All right, pretty good. Again, this bump isn't ideal, but I think it's not too bad. We're going to be okay. Then we're going to pull on this one and get ourselves the rest of the way to the corner on the side as well. Okay, and then we'll stretch across the top here. Looks like I have a tiny bit of overlap in my fabrics, so let me just trim it down a little bit. And then let's knock these ones in. That one's really close to the edge. Hard to hit. All right. All right, they're all pretty flat now. Pretty happy with that. Let's start on the other side. Okay, so let's see here. So if you remember, we want to sort of tuck that in as tightly as we have to. And we're just going to pull this out tight until we match the corner with where our cut ended up. And I'm going to pull this down decently tight here. And let's get right on the edge. And we'll go over a couple as well to get started. Well, that one also didn't go anywhere. All right, that's fine. We're fine. Okay. And then I'm going to get this side started as well. So let's once again look at our corner folding here. So again, I'm going to just bring this edge sort of back, tuck it in as much as I need to, and then that point right where I cut, I'm going to drag it as much as I can to the corner. Looks like I went a little too tight on this one, but that's fine. If I pull really hard, I can get it just about there. All right, so we'll tip this up, pull that as much as I can. This is where another person pulling probably would be helpful for you. And I don't know about that first staple. I definitely know that one didn't work. Let's get a few going there. I think I'm going to redo that first one. I think that I might have hit the screw from our bracket that was going down. We'll see if we can hammer that in though. Seems okay. All right, now what I want to do here is get rid of these staples. On the end, where we had this initial staple, I don't want that in anymore because I want to be able to pull tight as we go. That did its job of keeping everything lined up. So sometimes you can just pull the fabric and get the staple to pop out. Okay, it started popping out and then it ripped. So let's get a pair of some kind of pliers. You should be able to grab onto it and pull it the rest of the way out. All right, now we are going to do the same thing we did on the other side. Like, you can double check too and see. So you can actually see this side is on a little bit of a slant. So I'm going to do this side first because it's the slightly shorter side, so I can pull that nice and tight and maybe get some of that back. But if it is on a slant, that's okay. As long as we're still covering everything, it's going to be fine. So we're going to pull on this side as we go, keeping it nice and tight to everything. And we're just going to work our way down the edge. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of room to the end because we might have to do we probably want to do some cutting there. Okay, and now it's the other side. So we're going to pull this one tight, and we're going to work our way. Now, yeah, looks like when we pulled that side, it pulled it back more or less even. So we'll pull on this side as we go. Out of staples. All right, back at it. All right. Looking good. All right, now we just have to figure out how we want to do this end. And it's going to be similar to the first one. Right, so if we bring this end over, that was sort of how we started the whole thing. So we're going to bring this end over, and we're going to get some staples. Make sure this is opened up enough. If these staples might be too close, I might have to take those out in a second. But I want to make sure that I'm not stapling. Actually, I'm just going to take them out. They're definitely closer than I want right now. So let's see. Usually, if you kind of grab the fabric right next to it, you can get it to pop out. All right. That's enough space. All right, so I'm going to pull this tight, bring it over. Get it folding the way I want it to fold. All right, and I'm going to be crushing the pool noodles just a little bit there. I want them just a little bit squished in. And you can see the wood starts here. So I'm going to get right again on the edge of the wood. Okay. And now we can trim this off. We'll leave just enough room to put a second row in there. So we'll trim this off somewhere around here. And then we can do that second row of staples. Okay, now we have the same problem that we had last time, except it's a little bit worse because we are sticking off the edge of the wood more. So ultimately, like, a lot of this can hide inside there. You know what? I think I changed my mind. I think because we're so far off the edge of the wood, bringing this end up doesn't make sense. I think we want to bring the other end up on top of this end, because I don't know how to deal with, right? Because we're only going to be stapling it here, so we're going to have a lot. Oh no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. All right, we just have to figure out how much of this material we can remove. And I think our goal is to ultimately have sort of like this triangle shape that's coming back, and that stops just off the edge of the wood. So all of that extra material should be just off the edge of the wood. Then we can staple it, and we'll still only be 2 layers of fabric thick. So I think for sure what we want to do is along the side here, I'm going to cut this back, okay, till it goes past the edge of the wood. So the wood is here, and I cut just past that. And let me see. I think there's a lot of extra material here that we don't need. So this is going to go up, and we're going to have I want to basically fold this into a triangle. And I want this triangle to stop there. So I think we cut all of that off. But then when we fold it up, if all of that was gone, that would be a decent corner. So I think that makes sense. So let's try to tuck this in. Let me see, I'm hitting a lot of stuff. All right. Reposition some things here. OK. So I think we want to tuck this in for starters. I'm just going to kind of, I could probably just tuck it all in like that. And then if we bring this up, that's pretty darn good, except, right, like this extra bit here. So I think, OK, so I think what I'm going to do is from where I cut, I'm going to go basically, I'm going to go straight in for starters to it. Straight-ish in. OK. Then if we start tucking this in again. OK, then we're going to pull that up. So then it is stapled there. So all of this also we want to go away. So how do we know what that is? So I think this cut should be more like a 45-degree cut or some kind of angled cut. So I'm going to come in on a little bit of an angle to that point. All right, now let's see. When we start tucking all of this in, okay, that's good, except we still need to get rid of a little bit more of this material. So what you should do is you should fold this in, tuck as much of this material in as possible, right? So we're sort of like bringing this, shoving this in, and creating a triangle here. And then whatever's left on this side, we'll just also tuck it down. When I pull this up to attach, that's what we want to see. And what I want to do is basically pull this triangle out so it meets up right at the edge of the wood. And that point, I can mark so we don't lose track of it. But this is right at the edge of the wood, right here, that point. Then from that point, we want to get rid of a lot of this extra material. So I'm going to cut from that point, basically across to where our other mark was. Okay, so now, this time, when we shove everything in, it's going to be perfect. So fold the fabric right at that point, right? So we're going to pull it tight, and we're going to bring this fabric fold right up to that point. And let's tuck a little bit more in here if we can. Okay, then we're going to pull this up. Until it is right on the edge. And then let's go ahead and add some staples. Let's go this way. All right. Make sure those don't move on us. Okay, this staple did not go in the wood, so we're going to put another one that does go in the wood. All right, then we got to do the same thing. We got to try to do the same thing on the other side here. Okay, so we're going to start out by cutting in right along the edge of the wood here, or just inside the edge of the wood, until we're just past the edge. And then we can do all of that tucking in. Whoa there. Okay, this one has way too much stuff on the outside edge, so what I'm going to do is if I fold this over, right, we know we're going to cut down this line at some point. I'm going to start that now. So, and I'm not going to get too aggressive, but I just want to get rid of some of the extra material that was in the way there. So we'll go a little bit farther. So we'll start somewhere around there and we'll see how that works. Okay, so then we start trying to tuck this in and making that triangle. So when we pull this across, that seems pretty good. So that's sort of like our new point is here. And really, all of this tucked in stuff seems like a fine way to go about it too. Okay, it goes a little bit too far for me, so I'm going to kind of trim from that point, and I'll just try to connect it to where this cut ended here. But it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Then we're going to fold this triangle in, tuck the extra stuff down. And then pull that up as tight as we can. All right, except that last one has to come out because I definitely overlapped the fabric there. So we'll undo this last one here. And that looks good. Okay, now let's cut all the way down. And we'll see where we need to go on this. Seems like somewhere around here would be good. So we'll cut straight down, straight-ish down. Okay, and then the other one we need to cut so that it doesn't overlap anymore. Somewhere around here. Looks pretty good. Okay, and I might, on some of this leftover stuff, just add a little bit of tape. We probably could have gotten that stapled. I think, before we do the tape, I think if I push down, I can sort of move the fabric enough, squish the pool noodle enough that I can go into the end of the wood here. Pulling it in if I can. Yeah, that seems good. I don't know if we need it, but I feel like if I put a little bit of tape here on the inside where it's not going to show, it will help kind of keep this seam down and keep stuff from getting caught in it. But I don't think you need this. I think I'm going a little overboard with that. All right, now we basically did all of the hard work. So the last thing we have to do is just run down this extra seam, the inside edge, to hold it down, and then run down this edge to hold it down. So we'll just, we can go from either side, I guess, here. Doesn't really make a difference. So we'll start here, and we'll just add some staples. Okay, that one is kind of weird and twisted, and I don't trust it. I'm going to do another one. That was better. All right, and then down this end. That seems better. Okay. I just feel for any of them that are still sticking up. Seems pretty good, except this one. Yeah, that's good. All right, there we go. This is now ready for us to mark and attach our brackets that are going to attach it to the rest of the robot. So let me clean up some of this extra fabric, get the bumper brackets. We'll come back and get them marked and attached. All right, so we need our bracket mounts. These are the front and back mounts. And then there are side mounts. We need 2 of each type for each L. So obviously you'll need 4 times as many. And then also there was a hardware bag that had a bunch of stuff. So it has sort of these wing nuts in it and those long bolts. We're going to need those later when we go to start attaching stuff, but not right now. And then there are more wood screws. And these wood screws they're basically exactly the same as the wood screws that we used when we did the corner brackets that we've been using. So they're the same number 8, 3/4 inch long. You can use the ones from the extra bin that we bought. You can continue using the ones that came out of here. There's no difference between them. And we're going to pre-drill holes. They're going to be 3 30-seconds of an inch again. So I've got my 3 30-seconds drill bit. And again, I like doing it by hand so I don't over tighten and strip out the wood screw holes. So I've got my screwdriver, ratcheting screwdriver here. And basically what we need to do is we need to take these smaller ones. These are our side brackets. And the side of our robot is the longer side. So it's the longer side of wood because we have this extra bit of pool noodle that's sticking out on the very top of this one here. So I think right now, technically, if you measure the pool noodles, right, this side is like 35.5, and this side from the pool noodle would be 30. I guess it's still smaller, 34.5. So, but the wood, right, we have the longer side of wood, and that's the side we're going to be working on. And you can see like the wood ends and yeah. So these are going to go on here, and we need to basically draw 2 lines. One of them is going to be 7 inches from the corner, and one is going to be 27 inches from the corner. And that's where we want to mount these to hopefully have them line up with the holes in the robot. So if we measure in, if I bring my tape measure in, and remember when you're measuring against something, you want to push until that thing is flat. You can see I actually have a little 7-inch line already from our previous attempt, but we can make a new one here. And I'm going to take my square and line that up, and we'll try to bring that line all the way. It was a little bit off, but all the way across. And then we'll do the same thing at 27. So I'm going to measure out to 27 inches now. So 27 is going to be right about, if it sits flat and not twisted, then we can get a good 27. All right, so this is 27. So the end of the line is 27. Let's line this up. It's weird. And that's about our 27. All right, so our goal now is to put these brackets here and here. This is going to be the bottom. These brackets go on the bottom of the wood. So when you're making your other side, you need to make sure that you're putting these in the same place. So when you have your second set of bumpers that are wrapped as well, obviously you need to do 4 of these L's total, 2 blue, 2 red. When it's wrapped, make sure you have them kind of lined up. These need to go the same way. So if you have the tall ends sticking up, on your camera's left, then these need to be on the bottom towards the camera. Or for me, if this is on the right, I want these away from me. And all of them have to be the same. So it can go on here, or you can rotate it around and it can go on. If you put them on this side, that's okay, as long as you make all of them the same. Because again, we can't have it so that one fits in one spot and the other one only fits or fits in the opposite orientation. All right, so if we line this up on the line, you might be able to, we can give it a try. You might be able to clamp this in place. It's a little tricky to clamp it when you're squeezing into pool noodle on the other side, but we can see if we can get that to go. How without having it fall apart on me, I don't know. So let's see. I want to stay right as sharply on that line as possible. And also, I want to make sure that this is flat with the wood. So I'm pushing in to make sure this is flat with the wood on the bottom here. And that looks pretty good. Obviously, when I squeeze it, it just crushes the pool noodle. So it's holding it a little bit, but it's not like holding it amazingly well. But since we're just drilling into wood, I think it's going to be okay. All right, and then I'm going to go with that 3/32 drill bit. And since we can see the top hole, I'm just going to drill for the top hole. Nice. And then I'm going to get one of those screws, and we're going to screw it in. Okay. Now we have to take the clamp off. Again, it shouldn't move too much because we're just drilling into wood and we're drilling a very small hole. So let's give it a try. I'll try to, feels like this is maybe a little twisted, so I actually maybe will help it a little bit. We'll find out. That looks a little better to me. You can also check now that you have one screw in. You can check with your square and use that to kind of square it up as well. Make sure you're measuring off the same side, though. All right. Looks good. Let's add the screw. All right, those feel good. And then on these side ones, we're going to do all 3 holes. We're going to screw all of them. So we'll get this middle one here. Try to line up, too, when you line up your drill bit, try to line up in the center of the hole as much as you can. Very nice. All right. One down, and I think if we spin it this way, we can try that clamp again off the end of the table. So make sure these are both on the same surface. So these are both on the bottom here. And for both of them, we are lining up so that the line is on the outside of the piece. So the angle, the other bumper piece, is over here, right? So we have the corner over here. And we want this whole bracket to be towards that other bumper of the line. And same thing with the first one we did. They should both be towards that. Okay, let's go ahead and try to line this up as best we can on this line. And we'll clamp that in. It's flat on the bottom of the piece. Seems pretty good. You could, again, use the square. It's pretty good. All right, let's go for it. We can drill the one hole we can see. Try to be right in the center. Okay, and then we're going to screw that in. Bracket off. That feels pretty flat and looks pretty square still, so let's drill the next hole. Okay, and then the last one. Okay, and now on the other side, so again, we have these are now facing towards me, right? So this is the top, this is the bottom. So the bottom is facing towards me. Our other brackets go on the top of the robot like this. And we can do a line, and we're going to clamp it, and then after it's clamped, we're going to set it on the robot and see if it works out before we actually drill and attach those holes. So this one, the first one I believe should be at 2 inches in. All right, so let's measure. We got 2 inches in on this one. There's the pen. So again, it's going to be from that inside wall. Just 2 inches. Okay, so it's the edge of my ink blob. Let's line it up. Okay, and the other one is 20. So we'll measure here out to 20. And then use the square. Looks good. All right, let me get myself some more of these clamps. Okay, now these ones, they go on the top of the robot. And this time, obviously we can't be towards the corner, so we're going to be away from the corner on both of these as we clamp them in. Okay, so we'll just do our best to line that up, and then we'll drop a clamp on. All right, so I can still move it. It's just held on a little bit. So I'm trying to make sure we're nice and flat on the top. And right on that line. I'm going to do 2 clamps here. Seems okay. All right, and then we need the other one. So again, let's get that lined up. seems pretty close. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is kind of clean up the table a little bit. We got to bring the robot back so we can try to fit this on the robot. Okay, so we got the robot back. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of mark the holes we're aiming for. And we've got sort of like bolt and bolt here on the side of the frame. And if you go out towards the outside, skip one hole, this is one of the holes we want to line up with. And then from the bolt going the other way, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and the fourth hole here is the other one we want to line up with. So those are the 2 holes there. I'll mark this one as well. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then on the side from the bolts, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and it's 4 or 5. We're going to find out. We only need 1 bolt on the sides. And then from the other edge, 1, 2, 3, and it's 4 or 5 here. Okay, so we're sort of marked there. Then we're going to lift this whole thing up and try to just sort of fit it. So the front ones go on top. The side ones go on the inside of that channel. And you can see right away, well, I can see, it's probably really hard to see. If I pull back hard, those side holes line up pretty close. Not perfectly. I have to push in and pull back. So there's going to be some misalignment just based on how things were mounted and whatnot. And then the front holes, it looks like those are not where I want them exactly. So this one looks way off to me. And I'm just sort of trying to look down. I know the clamps are kind of blocking it, but yeah, that is missing by quite a bit. So I'm going to remove these clamps here for a second. And of course, that's going to make things move on me. I'm going to grab a few of those bolts, the long bolts here. And if I drop those bolts in, to the holes with the arrows. Sometimes it's hard to get the bottom hole lined up. And you can get the bottom holes to go in crooked too, so make sure it's going straight up and down. I have no idea where that one's supposed to go. That is that in on an angle thing I was talking about. So let's move it over. There we go. All right, that one's in. This one is trying to like look through the holes to see it. That is in. Good. All right. So this is kind of where these are going to go. You could, if you wanted to, actually add the wing nut to hold them in place. I'm going to add 2 on the side too. And I'm going to have to probably force it a little bit. And at this stage, I don't want to, we're eventually going to drill these holes and make them much bigger. But on this step, I want to do as little of that as possible. So I'm just going to try really to squeeze things and push to get it to go in. Okay, there we go. Got one on the side. Let's see if we can get another one. I'm really having to pry it a lot. If you have to screw it in or you have to hit it with a hammer or something like that, that's also okay. And maybe if you look from the other side, you can see where the hole is ending up. I think that's started. I think if I try to screw that one in, it'll go. Yep, that is down below the surface. Okay. If you can't get these to fit at all, what you can do is put your number 7 drill bit, that 0.201 inch drill bit in, and drill a little from the top and a little from the bottom. and then force them in. But we want to do this one as tight as possible so we can get the front ones attached. And then we will come back and we will use that drill bit and we will open these holes up so they drop in nice and easily. Because remember, you have to change these bumpers. Like, we have 12 matches at a minimum at a competition. If you're 6 red and 6 blue, you could alternate every time. So you could have to change bumpers every single match. And you do not want that to be a difficult process to go through. Okay, so now we're kind of closer to where we want to be. This is the tricky part because, again, we're clamping onto the pool noodles, which always makes this a little hard. But these brackets are now where they're going to go. So if I lift this up, and I'm just going to basically make it so that the wood, I can feel the wood, or the top of the bumper, is even with the top of that bracket. And since the side is being held in, right, we know we're in good shape here if this is lined up. So then I'm going to squeeze that down, do a second one. I am going to be in trouble. So when I do this, I need to make sure I'm not covering the screw holes, because if I can't take these screws out, if I can't pull them up, I will not be able to disassemble this. Because remember, the side has to go out first. And I can't go out if the bolts are still in. I can't go up on the front. So we'll try to put 2 right next to each other in the middle. I can now get those bolts out and see stuff. I can feel the top. It is still lined up. Let's do the same thing on our other front bracket here. And this one is going to have a lot less play, because it's sort of like if this is level and the sides are attached, we're not going to be able to move this corner very much. So we're basically just going to let this go where it goes. If it's underneath the wood, I would try to lift up a little bit. If it's high on the wood, I would try to push down a little bit. But you're not going to be able to make huge adjustments with this one. Okay. That actually feels really good. I'm happy with that. Okay, so now we got to take these bolts out. Some of them are easier said than done. That one is super tight. I'm going to get the screwdriver to help it. I might have put that one in crooked too. So if you think you did it crooked, you might want to go back and check just to make sure things are okay. But I think it's just a little, it's just a little tight on the top. And that's fine, I hope. I think it just means I'm going to be unscrewing for a while. It is moving. Wow, it's so close. Come on. There we go. Helps too if I push in on this just to help reline it up. Okay, and then we got to get these side ones out. Oh, that was easier than I expected. This one I had to screw in, so I assume I have to screw it out too. Okay, so we'll gently remove this. See how much I can roll this out of the way so we can drill and screw in our last front mounts there. Let's see if we can get the robot out of the way without having to lift it. Okay. So now we're going to tip these up. And I'm being gentle because remember, we're clamped on the foam, which is not great. And I think with these, it wants us to drill 3 screws in a W shape. So I'm going to start with this one here. And then let's go ahead and get the screw started. So we're going to do 2 on the top edge of the wood. Okay. And then, let's see, I'll take these off, I think, now. And I'm going to go for the bottom of the W here. Okay, seems good. And then let's try this top one. Okay, be careful with the top one. I hit something while drilling in there. I think, remember we had the brace on the top here and the screw going in from the top? I think I just drilled into that screw. So, yeah, that's scary with this size drill bit. We could try screwing this in, but no, I don't think it's going to work. So what I'm going to do is do the bottom hole here. That one didn't hit anything. So we'll do the bottom hole. And then just because we bought the extra screws, I might do the top hole in the middle as well. And this is probably fine, these 3. But again, we have extra screws, so I'm going to add one more here. And if you want to fill all the holes with screws, that's not a terrible idea. In fact, during the season, if your screws start getting loose over time because the bumper is taking some abuse or whatever, yeah, just go ahead and use the other holes. Obviously not this hole now because something hits in that hole, but all right, that's good. Let's slide over here. Okay, same thing. We'll start on the top. Okay, other top. We will declamp. And then the one hole on the bottom here. All right. That feels pretty good. Let's go ahead and try fitting that back on the robot now. It's looking pretty close. So on the fronts, we're supposed to try to get 2 bolts in. Yeah, let's see. Maybe I definitely still have to like push it in to get it into the right position for starters. But this hole lines up pretty nicely once we do that. as does this one. Let's try over here. Yeah, if I'm not squeezing in, this is going to be really hard to get to go. And some amount of squeezing in is probably okay. Oh, that went crooked. Yeah, this one, that one, I don't know if that goes. That is, I think, not in the right. Oh, no, that did. It dropped in. Okay. I stand corrected. This one also pretty tight. If I push in on it, though, I can get it to kind of get close. There we go. So those do go in. Let's see on the side. Again, yes, I have to push in quite a bit on the side to get these to line up, which is okay for right now. And you can use whichever hole on the side looks better to you at the time. Oh yeah, this one, both of these are not lining up. Both of these are definitely going to need some help. All right. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so it's pretty close. We've got some work to do when we finally attach everything, but this is about as close as I would expect it to get. But before I actually mount it and be done with it, we do want to paint numbers on the bumpers. So I am going to take them off again. We'll then go take this bumper, get it painted, and then when we bring it back with the numbers painted on it, yeah, we're going to have to probably do some drilling and stuff with these holes to get everything to line up perfectly and for everything to attach. And most importantly, be easy to take off and put on, because again, you got to do this a lot of times during the match. So I'm going to take this bumper off. We'll come back and get painting. All right, I have both of my L's wrapped here. We need to paint numbers on them. So I'm going to remind you this numerous times. The smaller brackets is on the bottom. The bigger brackets are on the top. So make sure when you put your numbers on, they are right side up. Okay, so I have the smaller brackets facing towards me, smaller brackets facing towards me. And I'm going to use stencils. We got these little stencils. And you can probably use any spray paint, but this is Flex Seal. And it's like this rubberized stuff, right? So it's supposed to like be rubber and fill gaps in. And the idea is it sticks to the fabric a little bit better. And is a little bit more durable. So that's why I'm going to use this. It was recommended to me by some people who made a lot of bumpers. I'll trust them. All right, so if we're going to do the stencils, I kind of want a little bit more of a backing so that when I spray paint, I don't get it all over everything. So let's see. I don't have that many numbers. We're going to be 2, 3, 7, 8 this year. I think I keep using the stencils up, and I have not replaced them, so we are limited. Okay, just pop out the things. And what I'm going to do is tape these together. So instead of being 4 individual stencils, they're one big stencil. Okay, 2, 3, 7. And of course, it goes without saying you will make your team number, not my random team number. That seems good. It seems like we'll use that. Okay, so then what I need to do is I'm going to cut a hole in this cardboard that is about the size of this whole stencil. I need to be a little bit smaller than this. So these lines, what? Okay, we rotated quite a bit there. That's fine. All right, so as long as I am a little bit smaller than this, we should be okay. So I got a piece of scrap wood underneath so I can cut into that. And we'll just go in a little bit from the line. Stop, go in a little bit from the line. In a little bit from the line. Okay, and really, okay, I'm gonna fold this over because this was not gonna help me attach it. What I wanna do is tape it in this way so that the stencil will be right against the thing I'm stenciling. It fits inside my window. So I will put it now on the back and we'll get this taped in place. And you should double check the rules. Make sure you get stencils that are big enough to, like there's a minimum size of writing and stuff like that. So make sure you get, things that are legal there. And I believe we also need to put the number on 4 sides of the robot. So we're gonna have to spray this on every side as we go here. All right. Danger. Directions. 8 to 12 inches from surface using a sweeping motion. Allow 24 to 48 hours to dry before applying another coat. I've never had to apply a second coat, but I guess that is good to know. All right, so we've got our bumpers here. There's no rule that says where in the bumper you've got to attach your numbers. So you could go all the way in the corner. You could go all the way in the center. This is about 36 inches long. My area here is about 13. So I want to be about 13. 36 minus 13 is 23. So I want to be about 11.5 inches from the side to the start of the first number. So this would be about 11.5 to the first number, and this would be about 11.5 to the second number. Okay, seems good. And then you need to just sort of find a good center spot here. I'm actually going to put it up on my scrap piece. Actually, I've got another piece of cardboard. The stencil is a little bit, just like a tiny bit taller than the bumper. This way I won't spray paint the table if any goes through. And I'm just going to try my best to get the numbers lined up and straight. That seems pretty good. Okay, and then I can sort of bend this down a little bit as we go to spray. Let's do it. 8 to 12 inches. This is 9, so somewhere around here. All right, here we go. Okay, should be able to gently lift that up. Looks like I oversprayed a decent amount, but that is a team number. It is legible, and that should dry on there nicely. All right, I'm gonna flip it to the other side, remembering, of course, that I wanna look at the way these numbers are and make sure these numbers are facing the same way. Looks like the back of my stencil here is not too contaminated. So we'll do that. I'm gonna go to the side again so I can sort of see the whole bumper and try to line it up with it. Actually, it looks pretty good. All right, let's spray this one. I think maybe if I start a little higher, it might be good. 8 is just a tough number. So hopefully you don't have an 8 in your team number. No, it's fine. All right, there we go. 2 sides done. Let me gently set this back here to dry. No, that's totally fine. Just don't bump it. All right, next one. They are on the bottom facing towards me. So I need it matching. And I kind of learned from my first one that the cardboard should be almost right up against the pool noodles for me to be roughly in the center. So I'm not going to measure this time. It's going to be close enough for me. And here we go. Yeah, all right, looks good. Okay, and then get our other side up, and I did rotate the bumper, so again, top is now towards me. So we flip our thing around. Uh-oh, now we're definitely, all right, hold on, let me wipe up some of my overspray here. If you have time to let it dry in between the stencil, that also helps. You won't run into this problem. But you should also be able to just kind of wipe it off. I am definitely going to need to get the back again. Okay. I think that's good enough for our use. You might want to wait a little longer on yours to get it dried up a little more, but let's go ahead and get ourselves lined up here. Looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and spray it. All right. And that one, we got a couple of splotches, but it's going to be fine. All right, we'll set this one aside to dry as well. All right, we're back. We've got our painted bumpers. Let's try to reassemble them now on the frame. I already put one on, but let's reattach the front one here and see how it goes. There's a really good chance, and that's the reason why I carried the drill over, there's a really good chance that our holes are no longer going to line up perfectly because we just added all that fabric in the way. So let's see if we can get our front ones to go in. And yeah, also that pool noodle that we had that was sticking out that was a little bit long is causing us a little bit of problems here. So in this corner, that extra pool noodle and extra fabric is a little rough. So I think I can just about get it started. Let's check out on this side. Looks sort of like the same issue here. Just with the extra fabric wrapped on, it's going to be a little tougher to get things to line up. So let's go ahead and start re-drilling the holes. And I want to sort of be squeezing in on this bumper. And then let's just go. All right, there goes that one. Cool. Let's see if we can get this end. This end looks the farthest out. Oh, but if I squeeze it, it's not too bad. Let's get a little more. All right, let's see if we can get that one to go now. That's harder than I want to have to fight with it, so I'm going to give it some more. It's got to go now. Okay, now it's nice. And you'll probably have to redo all of the holes as you go through here to get stuff to line up. So we'll work our way through the next one here. And then the one here. Okay, let's get some more bolts. And we'll try to put those in. Yeah, that goes now. And that one goes. All right, and then the sides, we're going to have basically the same problem on the sides. So let's hit them with the drill. Okay, and then the side ones, of course, we're going to do up from the bottom again. And the front ones here. Okay, that should get us there. And remember with the side ones, we really only need one bolt to fit. That one is still pretty tight. This one feels good though, at least for starters. Let's see if I can get the back one in. Definitely still tight. Let's hit it again. And from the bottom, that's got to be good enough. Yep. Okay, and then I think we need, the top of this one feels good. Let's get the bottom one more time. There we go. All right, so we can add the wing nuts to this. Remember, this is something you probably want to practice too. You're going to have to be able to take these bumpers off and replace them with the other color, like go from blue to red or red to blue. You're going to have to do that several times in a tournament. You get 12 matches for qualification rounds, and those are the ones where you have 2 partners and 3 random opponents. And in general, you're going to be about half red, half blue. So if you're lucky, you might only have to swap bumpers a couple times, but if you're unlucky, you could have to swap like every single match. So it could be like 6 times that you have to swap your bumpers. So get good at doing this process. And like I said, if one of them doesn't quite line up, don't just leave it. Go ahead and drill it out more or figure out what you can do to get it to line up. so that this process doesn't take too long. All right. And got that one. One more wing nut here. That looks good. All right. So now our bumpers are completely attached to the robot. We've got numbers on them. A little bit of a struggle, but we're able to get it done. So this robot is now 100% mechanically complete as far as KitBot goes. We still need to program it, so we're going to do that in the next video. Also, don't forget, you have the ability to add onto this robot. Plenty of room in the middle and on the sides. So mechanically done for now, but if you have time before your first event, think about what you might want to attach to this. All right, we'll see you in the next video when we start programming. But before we go, we're going to give another special thanks to Argosy for making this all possible, to First and Andymark for parts and support, and to Team 302, Lake Orion High School, for hosting our studio.